Welcome to Eye on the Illini Live. This is Mike Kegley. We are here. We'll have Ked. We will have Brad. We might even have Matt or Larry. We just don't know. We'll see who can get on. It's in the evenings. Life is sometimes crowded. But we are going to talk a little bit about that Illini victory over Iowa that was a little bit touch and go for a while there. Sanford had a noble attempt at a victory. Wasn't quite able to pull it out, but had a fantastic game, leading the way across both teams with 30 points on 11 for 20 of shooting. Illinois ends up winning 106-94 in a game that defense was truly optional. So we did not have to worry about a defensive battle, and Illinois came in and became the second team behind another Iowa team to score over 100 in the Big Ten tournament. Let's take a quick look here as we start off. Take a look at the stat sheet for the game, and I think this is where you saw an awful lot of really where Illinois looked very, very strong. You had Kylan Boswell with 24 points. He certainly picked the right game to come into his own, not just on the defensive end, because Boswell does a wonderful job on the defensive end, but with 24 points on 10 of 14 shooting, 4 for 7 from the three, that was a heck of an effort by Kylan Boswell. Will Riley has brought himself as a freshman. His journey has come from basically a player who was we watched come out on supernova fire, went through some rough parts, that freshman wall, and yet has come through on the other side much stronger. Ibisevic is looking good, 19 points and 10 rebounds. Of course, Will Riley was 21 points and 7 boards. And I have to say, Tomislav had 6 assists to go with that. Quite a game. For those people who don't have the scorer's card in front of them, Trey White, 22 points, continues his good play. 7 for 11, 5 boards. And Yakachonis was at 10 points. Did not have the greatest night shooting, but did get to the free throw line and convert those. 3 rebounds and had 6 turnovers. That started to hit a little harder. And again, it's that part where he takes the ball right in front of him that gets him into trouble. You had Gibbs Lawhorn, didn't score tonight, still had some energy out there. Rickhouse had 5 points, had 3 boards. One of them was a critical one that helped extend Illinois possession. And we go down. Jake Davis had 1. AJ Red didn't score. Merez Johnson didn't play a ton, but he had 4 points. And 12 minutes, the man had 8 boards. Look, you got to give the kid credit. And I'm actually kind of glad they brought him back and just played him a limited amount, because tomorrow night, that's going to be a bear. And Kutcher didn't have any points in his 1 minute out there. So, Ked, we'll have you give thoughts on the game, and then we'll have Matt give thoughts after that. But, Ked, your thoughts now.
Well, it was a shoot-'em-up game. It was just a tough matchup, and I mean, for the people who want to criticize Brad Underwood for or Illinois' defense, I was just listening to Brad Underwood's post-game radio show, which is why I was late, so I apologize. But he wasn't upset with the defense. Iowa made tough shots. Iowa came off the screen looking to shoot the basketball. That's what Fran does. So for the people out there who are concerned about the lack of defense from Illinois, Brad just mentioned it. So, if you know more than Brad Underwood, kudos, good luck to you, whatever the case may be. So, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, you have to just watch. They run good stuff, and it wasn't. And Brad made a comment. They had hands in their faces. They made tough shots, and Illinois just played really, really well. And I just heard you go through all the stats, and I want the people out there to listen. Matt and I are very opinionated people. I personally enjoy kind of going at it back and forth with him when it comes to football and basketball. But I'm one personally, I'm going to give kudos when it's due. And Matt's been a big Kylan Boswell fan. And I want to give credit because I think the staff has done a tremendous job with making him be a better defensive player. It was one of the most bogus things to Illinois athletics, other than Trent Frazier not being on the all-defensive team or being defensive player of the year. Kylan Boswell got hosed, Matt Wright. Illinois has done a great job of developing him as a player. They've done a great job of developing Will Riley as a player, Trey White. All the people who are on our message boards who want to complain and say who's gotten better. I just gave you 3 guys. I can't say who was the best quote-unquote player in the game because these kids are growing up right before our eyes, guys.
Yep.
Well, I'll start out by saying I guess I know more than Brad Underwood, because if there's not, if there's not more defensive resistance tomorrow night, they're going to go home. I don't care.
That won't happen tomorrow night, man. I
don't care how many tough shots that Iowa made. Like if you want to whitewash the idea that they gave up 94 and gave up 8 3-pointers to Peyton Sanford, and a lot of those were not contested, all right, but they did score 106, and they are moving on, and that's the deal here, right? Yeah, Kat. I've been talking about Kylan Boswell being a winning basketball player, for months, and tonight I thought he was one of the best guys on the floor, on both ends of the floor. To be honest with you, I felt like this was another game where Kylan looked around at his other 4 teammates and goes, "Oh, I guess I'm the only one that's going to get in a stance and defend." Cool. The emergence of Will Riley is really, really impressive. Days after he wins Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year, which I thought he totally deserved. And I one of our colleagues who does Big Ten awards on his own, platform, I said, "Hey, why don't you just vote Will Sixth Man of the Year? He comes off the bench more than he's started this year." That's been really, really impressive. And look, you win on a night where I thought KJ was awful. I'm being real. I thought KJ was awful, and he's one of the more talented players in all of college basketball. And he was awful tonight. And you were able to beat Iowa by double digits, and you're moving on, and you're going to have to get a better effort from him tomorrow in order to move on. But you're moving on because you've got a lot of guys like Tomislav Visic that can really handle a large workload. He was on triple-double watch here for a while because, like Cagley, you were pointing out his assist number. He just sees the floor at the top of the key better than anybody, and I love what they run with him.
Except Jokic.
In that action. And then, I'll mention Morez because I really thought he was going to play and have a significant role in this tournament. And I thought, look, his 4 points came off of offensive putbacks. He is part of what Illinois has not had since he's been gone, which is that sandpaper and that physicality in the paint and on the glass that Illinois is going to need in this postseason run, whether it's in Indianapolis or next week in the NCAA tournament. So Illinois did a lot of good things tonight. Not a lot of them were on the defensive end of the floor, and they're going to have to figure out what they're doing tomorrow in order to beat Maryland on the defensive end of the floor. But you're moving on, and that's the goal here. You're trying to go 1-0 every night, and Illinois did that. Yeah,
and let's talk a little bit about some of the team statistics. It was a wash from a field goal standpoint with the 55 for Iowa, 54% for Illinois. 3-point percentage, 46% each way. And then you look at, 3-point field goals, 46 each way on that. Free throws. Ironically, Iowa hit 50%. I don't know that I ever remember a Fran team shooting free throws that poorly on a night against Illinois, at least. Turnovers, Illinois had 10-5 for Iowa, but 10 against Iowa is way too many. Illinois needs to keep that down because there was actually no real pressure. And then you look at points off of turnovers, and that 17-9 is that 8 points isn't a huge deal, but it is when you're playing a close game. And so that could have been a fatal dagger for the Illini. But where Illinois got everything back was the fact that they had a 41-24 rebounding advantage and a 14-7 offensive rebounding advantage, and they flipped the points off of turnovers to be up 17-9 in second chance points. So I think that was something that was really critical to winning this game. And fast break points, Iowa got out and outscored Illinois 18-4. And so I think overall, you saw a game where Illinois' superior rebounding probably was one of the key issues, and they shot like we thought they could shoot in the start of the season. So that was all in all a good night for the Illini offensively, and I think that's something that we really want to think about. That I think that's really kind of a big deal to have Illinois go out and do what we actually thought they would. Going to go through a couple things here. We're going to have to tell the Coke people that our podcast is influential to people now that we have people trying Coke Zero, which is my addiction of choice. So Coca-Cola people, this is the good stuff. Why is it good? Why is Coke Zero good? Because they have the actual Coke recipe. They take out the sugar and put in the chemicals that make it taste good. I'm not commenting on, I don't know how good the chemicals are for the rest of me, but they taste good. So anyway, you want to drink the best soda out there? It's Coke Zero, period.
Okay. Or you can drink water like I am. Mike, can I make a comment real quick about your stats? Is it
going to be about water?
No, I'm not being about water. No, but I'm talking about water,
right.
man.
Okay.
This is about the game. Matt's trying to hold it back, man. That's okay, Matt. Let it go, baby. You mentioned turnovers, and I'm sorry. I'm going to get scolded, and I deserve to get scolded here. And you can say, bad Mr. Prince. They had 10 turnovers as a team. One kid had 6 of those 10 turnovers.
Yep.
One kid. You can play bad. I understand you can miss shots. You can miss defensive assignments. Part of his problem, ladies and gentlemen, he's trying to draw fouls. Oh, my gosh, I'm watching the Big Ten basketball game and the USC coach is holding up a Coke. But anyway, I'm literally sitting here.
Cat, he's going to go through about 10 of them tonight. If I know him really, really well, I've seen.
I would be a massive burper if I was out there going through 10 in the middle of a game.
He goes through Musk goes through about an unbelievable amount of Coke Zero.
I cannot throw a rock because when my doctor at my physical is like, how many of those you drink a day? And I'm like, and he's like, 3? And I go, 3? That's breakfast.
Sorry, Cat, go ahead.
No, you're right, because I remember one of the games I got to go to, when I was healthy was that game. And I remember because it was a Saturday. And you're right. They had them lined up for him. So, Matt, that's a good call observation on your part.
You know how we sit on courtside, Cat? I've never heard the like so many times on the sideline. But Eric Musselman sure as hell did it in that game.
Yeah. That's definitely an addiction, but I shouldn't say that. Anyway, I need some therapy, fellas, from you two or from our fans. I'm trying so hard to give this kid the benefit of the doubt, but I just don't. After 30-something games, watching him trying to flop like a bass or a catfish, bluegill, crappie, whatever you want to call it, to draw fouls, it hasn't worked all season. It just hasn't. And I know the coaches are there. I love them because they're players' coaches. They are. But it's a concern. Now, as well as they're playing right now, KJ Curbelo, as well as they're playing right now, this is a team that we thought, can you imagine? Because everybody's playing up to their capabilities right now except for him. This team, I really do believe, and you guys have never heard me say this, if he could play the way he played against Northwestern, the second half against Oregon, I'm going to go on record and tell you, if they play like this, they can reach the Final Four. They can. But he's not doing that right now. He's that missing guy. They put up 6-7 points tonight, and he was mediocre. If he could get hot, take care of the basketball, just make normal plays, give them 10 points, 4 or 5 assists and 8 or 9 rebounds, I'm okay with that. But he has to value the basketball, guys.
That inbound save though was spectacular play.
Yeah, but Mike, that's one play, man. I mean,
I think ultimately, look, I got to be honest with you. I'm really torn on him because if you can go in the first round of the NBA draft, especially if you can go in the lottery, you're going to make upwards of $25 million on that first contract. I don't know there's any way I could tell anyone don't do that, because $25 million sets
Life
you and your
changing.
family up for life.
Yep.
At the same time, for the long run, I think another year of college basketball would really help him. But you don't want to tear an ACL. You don't want to blow out an Achilles tendon. You don't want one of those. If you want that to happen, if that, nobody wants that to happen. But if that happens, you would prefer to be, owed $20 million more.
Well, look at Cooper Flag today. I mean, I don't know.
Exactly.
It's hard to give the Cooper Flag argument, Kev.
Yeah, yeah. Because listen. Take the NBA money, and I'm just telling you this, and I'm probably going to lose a lot of people who respect me as a journalist columnist. I don't see the lottery pick. I just don't, and I know here's the knock. The knock is this. They say Brad Underwood doesn't use him the right way and the way they play him. I got a comment from a guy yesterday that said they put him on the ball too much. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just not seeing it. If I'm an NBA guy right now and I had to pick and choose between Will Riley and KJ, if it was me, I'm going Will. Sorry. I mean, the missed shots, the turnovers, and he hasn't learned from it. Will Riley's gotten better. Can you guys honestly tell me that you think he's gotten better in the last month and a half? Because if you can tell me that, I'll shut up and I'll listen.
Look,
look,
you don't need therapy. KJ was awful tonight. But you guys tell me I'm wrong. I thought he was pretty good against Purdue in the regular season finale. I thought he was pretty good. So I'm not going to sit here and go KJ was awful tonight. We need to panic here, because he at least to me, like in the Purdue game, he's proven he can wake up tomorrow and be fantastic. And that's the hope that you have to have if you're gonna get by Maryland tomorrow night, is KJ's really, really good, because Maryland's not going to let you score 106, and Maryland's not going to let your point guard have 6 of 10, 60% of your turnovers, and in order to win, but KJ has been proven in big games this year. And I thought he was, in the win they had against Purdue, especially in that second half, I thought he was really, really good. So if second half against Purdue, KJ shows up tomorrow night at Gainbridge, Fieldhouse, I'm pretty sure Illinois can get by Maryland and get to the semis. And that's what you have to hope for. But Kedge, you don't need therapy. He was awful tonight. And not only that, you perfectly executed why he was awful on the offensive end. He was awful on the defensive end too. He still doesn't understand how to guard somebody away from the ball, and it's frustrating. So he was awful on both ends tonight, but Illinois was able to win by 12. So yay, because that kind of tells me, one, this Illinois team is healthy for the first time since Halloween? And two, you've got enough talent that, hey, maybe your lottery pick can be awful on a night or two, and you can maybe you can be 1-0 in the building, and that's pretty much, again, in March. That's kind of all you got to do. So there's two sides to this coin, but Ked, you don't need a new TV. He was awful tonight.
Yeah,
well, the one thing I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
He's 6'6", and he can shoot the long range jumper. His handles need. I just worry it's gonna take him some time. Especially, people don't understand. The easiest way to tell somebody doesn't know anything about the NBA is how they tell you they never play any defense, because you're like, okay, seriously, they play defense there. It's just those guys are so dang good that you still can look like you're not playing defense. And I do think that way. It's funny because his turnovers are very, a lot of times guys get caught when the ball's outside of their body and they're dribbling and they lose control. He loses control right in the cylinder, and that's where he is going to struggle in the NBA, because if you're having problems at this level, you ain't seen nothing like what you're going to see in the NBA. That being said, 6'6", he can shoot. So they have that. Now, in terms of the fouls, I will tell you, I go two ways on what you said, Ked.
Okay.
One is he's trying to draw the foul too much, and he's got to go to the basket harder.
Thank you.
At the same time, I'm going to say something that's a little charged here, but he's a really white guy. That's what I am. And you can see on his
I can see you're white and he's white, but help me understand that.
But he is so,
I don't get that
you can
part.
see the red marks. You can see the red marks on him. They don't call. He just doesn't get the calls. There was one time when he went down the lane and got
second
hammered,
half. I was mad. He got hammered and they didn't call it.
Yeah, Braden Smith, they would have called 14 fouls on the other team. So
good point, Mike.
So again, I he's probably struggling to figure out what's a foul, what's not. And I get that. And he's got a reputation as a flopper now, which means the Big Ten refs are going to put him into a box that, he's probably not really getting hit. And at the same time, he got 8 free throws tonight. So it's a, you got to look at all the sides of it. But I do think when people ask, what's the right way to play him, what I would love to see him in is a old style Bobby Knight offense where you run the back picks, the Purdue offense where you run picks away from it, like where they get Braden Smith open, because he is a really good catch and shoot player. And I know that they're doing the pick and roll because that's what the NBA does. But I think getting him the ball as the 2 guard in a position where he can, pivot and go up, I think he's really good. And I think if they had a few more of those wrinkles incorporated into the offense, he might be able to do a little more. Cad, you obviously coach longer than I have.
So here's the deal. And I don't have to say a name. This is what I was told. And to Nathan, it's a good question. Mike, you're about 80% right. Here's what the NBA scouts are frustrated with. So Nathan, again, kudos. The right way to play him is don't give him the ball 99% of the time. We did a podcast 3 or 4 podcasts ago, and I said to you, I kind of like to see him off the ball a little bit more because he is a pretty decent catch and shoot kind of guy. What the NBA scouts like about him is the 2-man game, that pick and roll game. And if you think about his passes to Ibisevic, behind the back, over the head, across the court, that's what they like. That's what they really, really, truly see in him that a lot of kids at his age cannot do. And I can't take that away from him. And I think the flopping part, Mike, you're 100% right. That was probably the only time I got frustrated the whole game is because he went to the basket and he clearly got knocked off the ball. And whether it was Braden Smith and Mike Cagley, Matt Stevens, Brad Sturdy, Larry Smith, they would have got that call. He just didn't. And I think he is probably frustrated with it because tonight, for the first time in a long time, he came out with a little extra pep and stuff. When he got the ball, the first couple of possessions, he was attacking the basket quickly. But if they're not going to call those fouls, if they're not going to call the flops, then stop doing it. Because, Mike, my last comment is, if you want the foul, then go up strong and make them call it because they're not bailing him out with that.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
What does any of that have to do with him throwing the ball, throwing a chest lollygag pass in the middle of the court that goes back for a pick 6 every single time? Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand why they can't just tell him, don't do that anymore. Because I've seen KJ pick 6s all year, like to you guys' point. And then
I have an answer for that.
What does anything of that have to do with the fact that he has really, really struggled guarding guys away from the basketball? Because he doesn't seem to understand exactly what shooters are trying to do off screens with him. And his ability to come over the top of a screen on a curl on either side has bit Illinois consistently. Now, when he's asked to guard the basketball, he does a much, much better job unless that guy is really, really quick, because then they just get to the basket. Like, or at least they get to a Morez Johnson or Thomas Love. But when he's asked to guard guys off a curl, like, he seems to be very, very confused about how to go over the top or under a screen in order to get to where he needs to get. And that's my frustration with KJ. But there are nights in which if he doesn't throw a pick 6, like, Illinois runs a lot of good stuff. And if he doesn't, and there are nights in which, if he's guarding somebody who's going to just stand in the corner as a wing, he does a really, really good job of connecting everybody else, making sure everybody else is connected on that end of the floor. But if there's a Peyton Sanford out there right now that is knowing, hey, 32 is on me, like, oh, I can run him off a screen whenever I want and get an open look. And that's what happened tonight, because Peyton Sanford broke the Big Ten tournament record for made 3-pointers. Like, and at that point, you have to run like a Kylan Boswell off on him, and put a Kylan Boswell on him. And if Bam's going to play 37 minutes, guess what? He probably doesn't need to be running off of 3-4 screens of Peyton Sanford on the other end of the floor in order to do that, in order to have any gas left in the tank. So, again, like we talk about this for a long time, but again, look, he was awful tonight, and Illinois won by 12. So, they on Thursday, March 13th, they went 1-0 in the building because and they're going to have to get a better effort out of their lead guard tomorrow night. But there's indications that can happen, because there are nights he wakes up and you look at the other 9 guys on the floor and you go, they don't have anything on Yakashonas. And on those nights, Illinois usually ends up, in a good place. So if that happens tomorrow night, I would not be knocked out of my chair if Illinois were to knock off Maryland.
Ken, did you have an answer?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to comment, and I not to disclose too much information. Matt, this is to answer the first part of your conversation, why, the pick sixes and things like that. There are 2 players on this roster. And fans out there, you have to remember, we're different as adults. They're different as student athletes. KJ and Ben-Hum Rickhouse they're tough players. They're good players, but you can't treat them the way you can treat a Trey White or Morez Johnson or Kylan Boswell. Kylan's a tough guy. He just is. Or Drayvon Gibbs-Lawhorn. You have to be really careful, because if you say the wrong thing, push the wrong buttons with KJ, it's going to go south. It's and I know that for a fact. I'm not making this up. This is not an opinion of mine. So I think, and that's why the staff, if you really think about it, let's just go back and look at this. Matt, you've done this for a long time. Mike, you're just joining, this journalism party. You've known Brad Underwood since he's been there. If Ayo Dosunmu turned the ball over 7 or 8 times, as much as Brad liked him, he would have got his ass chewed out. He'd have been on the bench a lot more. They didn't do that with KJ. They didn't do that with him, because if his confidence gets down and Ben-Hum Rickhouse confidence gets down, which is why he stayed in the lineup for so long, those kids are not going to be effective. So that's why. And that's not my opinion. That is a fact.
Well, and look, that goes to management styles. You're not going to manage everybody the same way. So that's actually a positive for the coaching staff, that they
I agree.
Understand the differences there and do that.
I agree.
I will say, that I just think he's got to get the turnovers down. Oh my gosh, folks, we're going to head into a little commercial break, and then we have Brad Sturdy, who is going to be coming on. He is live at the Big Ten tournament. He'll be on in 30 seconds.
This is the Run My Own Business dream. This is the colleges paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
All right. When you hear the Busey Bank thing, that means Brad Sturdy's near. Brad, thoughts on explosive Illinois performance tonight?
Yeah, I really thought they played well. They did offensively. Offense was just exploding. They got Ivasic pulled, stretched out the Iowa defense, and they just had back cuts and dribble drives, and they could just get to the rim whenever they wanted. And they made some shots, obviously, but his ability to space the floor was a key. I thought, Boswell and White cutting were just so effective there, understanding when to go and when to do it. But, outside of really a few sloppy turnovers and a couple forced shots, they were, crazy good offensively. Of course, that's how you end up with 106 points.
Yeah, I thought that's a good way to say that. What was the anything come out from the press conference that you think jumped out at you?
Well, so I thought one of the plays that kind of showed why this team has changed since Duke was when they get the technical foul and they go to shoot the free throws. Kylan Boswell goes to the line, and then after they get the second technical foul, they go and they come out, and Boswell sends KJ to shoot free throws. Now, he just gave up 4 free throws, which he's an 80+% free throw shooter, and he didn't take them because he knew KJ needed that confidence. And I think that's the difference right now in this team is that leadership from Kylan Boswell. That is not something that you see very often where a guy gives up 4 points. Brett Underwood, I asked a question of Kylan about it, and he explained it. He said KJ was struggling. He just wanted to do something to make sure that, kind of give him some confidence. And Kylan said that KJ thanked him. And then Brad addressed it in the post game. He talked about how, that's kind of, there aren't many guys that will give up 4 points at the foul line, to a guy just to make him, feel good. And that's exactly what happened. And that is the best sign of leadership. I mean, that's like something you can literally see happening right out there on the floor. And it's really impressive.
Good. When you look out there, did you see anything, that you think will help for tomorrow night? I know it seemed like Morez was incredibly effective, but I was kind of happy to see they didn't put a lot of minutes on him tonight.
Well, I think his role is going to be limited right now. He's still trying to figure out the defensive side of the ball. He's only been in practice for 2 days, going through the defensive systems. And they remember they re-implemented new defense after Duke, which was a good thing. But yeah, so they kind of changed the way they were doing some things. So he's only been in practice 2 days. So it's going to take him some time maybe to get there. But, he's got played a little over 11 and a half minutes, I think it was. And I think that's I think you could see him play 15 to 18 minutes tomorrow just because of the matchup against Maryland. And they can play both guys. It was and the thing about today was it's a really bad matchup to play him at the 4 today because Iowa runs their basically 4 guards out there. And they're running all those guys off screens. And so either Morez or Ivasic, when they play together, has to chase one of those guys. And, yeah, you can get some points on the offensive end, but when they're draining threes and shooting like that, it's very difficult to give up those buckets on the other end. So I think that, that tomorrow night's a much better matchup for him to play alongside Ivasic against Queen and Reach. Now, remember, we talked about this before. There's really only about, probably 20 minutes in the game when you actually have Queen and Reese on the floor together in 40 minutes. So I think that you're going to see them, play a little bit together. Maybe it's 10, 12 minutes together, and then some time backing up Ivasic. So I think he could get some time there. But I will tell you this, though, a guy who's made a huge strides defensively has been Ben Hummerhouse. Tonight, he was so much better defensively. He hit a 3, and everybody focuses on that. But the great part, I talked to Ben in the locker room after the game, and the one thing he mentioned was he's just focused on now doing defending and rebounding or keeping guys off the glass, being and help. There are little things that you noticed today, like I think it was one of the guards got beat on a back cut, and Ben steps in front, cuts off the pass. Now they kicked out to his guy, and he hit he missed a pull-up jumper, but at the same time, it's like his willingness to help closes down so many things, and those are little things that you notice now, and those are things we probably didn't see earlier in the season from him. He's more comfortable because that's what he's focused on, and so then of course in turn he makes a couple of free throws, makes a 3, and it's a solid little game for him, and so he's going to have to play well tomorrow night too because it's a tough matchup for Illinois up front with that front court from Maryland, and they're going to need him to go in there and give them some minutes valuable. And, but at the same time, maybe Illinois with Ivasic, you pull Reese away from the basket. There's, they have Queen, but he's going to be guarding one of the other guys who can shoot. So if you pull Reese away from the basket, there's very little rim protection there. And I think they're content with letting Reese go one-on-one against Ivasic and Morez. If he's, taking 20 shots and scoring 20 points, they'll probably live with it. The difference is they've got to do a better job of keeping the other guys from hurting them and do a better job of attacking, offensively against a Maryland team that's really, really good defensively.
So, Brad, one other question. What was what the heck set Fran off to the point? I know when you look at the overall game, Illinois had 30 free throws compared to 10 for Iowa. If you're an Illini fan and that was flipped, Illini fans would be flipping out. Although I think Illinois probably took the ball to the basket a little harder, a little more effectively. But what happened with Fran? Because it almost looked like he was trying cheated.
So he had been on them all game. He thought, if you remember last time they played, he got on in the press conference. He got on the basically went on a kind of a soapbox about how Illinois was so physical and the grabbing and holding and all these things, which is we've seen Illinois play a lot. They're other than Boswell, physical is not how I would describe Illinois. Maybe Morez, but other than that, it's like physicality not a strength. But so he was upset about that. And so this time though, what he says is. He kind of was on them all night, and then they just had enough, and he used a magic word, and so he gets the first tech.
Yes.
And I thought the first tech was pretty soft. Like I thought they kind of called it pretty, and so he let him know, because usually when they call the first technical, what'll happen is they say, "All right, you got the first technical, and now we've calmed down." But they just went right back at him, and they threw him out because he said it was F and BS.
You could read that very clearly, Brad.
Yeah. It's pretty clear on TV, huh?
Yes.
And so he gets tossed, and it's interesting. It's kind of sad though, in some respects, because it's very possible that's the last game he's going to coach at Iowa, or last. He may be done tomorrow, from what I'm hearing. And so if that does happen, you hate to see that happen. But at the same time, that's we do have a Fran Con meter for a reason, right? And so
I just felt we were cheated, Brad. We've had so many good Fran Con moments, and that was the most anticlimactic Fran Con moment of all time.
Those are the softest Fran technicals of all time. I mean, you'd think you'd get a better one, where you really earn it, but it didn't happen.
I only had him at a 5,
easily. I'm not even sure he got to a 5 for Fran. I mean, when he goes 10, like the steam's coming out, he's turned red, and
there was no stare down. There was no nothing.
Nothing. Remember when he stared down the one guy on the official on the baseline?
I still have thing ever. I have a picture of that on my phone. I still look at everyone.
Oh, it's pretty funny. But no, I will say this: got to give kudos to Peyton Sanford for Iowa. What a game he had. He was fantastic. He hit some. There were a couple he got open, but he hit some really tough shots. So you got to give him kudos for what he did offensively, his career that he had. Really impressive. Great kid. Saw him after the game, and it's just really, obviously he cares, and he really put forth the effort, and he was fantastic tonight and had a wonderful career at Iowa.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the game, Brad? As you're there, covering it, and you're around all these players, and you got to go into the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, talking to the locker room, I got to talk to Will Riley. I was talking about being nervous, and he goes, "I don't know if I even get it nervous. It's just excitement. It's really interesting to see a kid at his age. He doesn't really get nervous. He just goes and plays, and I think that's why he does well in these types of games. Talking to Kylan a little bit about the leadership role and how he stepped up, I thought that was really good. But I got a chance to talk to Trey White for a few minutes, and really intriguing. He's like, he just feels, he said, sitting out that time when he was sick, he said he actually learned a lot about like what's happening on the court from watching on the sideline. I think sometimes people don't realize how important that stuff is. When you get to watch, then you're on the sideline, you watch, and you're like, you see what's happening, and then you kind of understand what the coaches are talking about from the sideline when they're on you. And so this was huge, I thought, from him. He was talking about how that time when he was out, he used it for his advantage, and it was really successful for him. That time out, and you've seen him play extremely well the last 4 or 5 games. So really, really happy for him. He's really locked in, and he said actually he had a quote. He said, "It's winning time." And so we knew after that Duke game, we said it's winning time, and we got to turn it up a notch, and we got to get to that. We got to find a way, and it's all, we got to do whatever it takes. He said, if I get 10 and 10, great. If I get 20, great. If I score 5 and don't get a rebound, then that's fine as long as we win. And so it's a great mindset to hear him talk about it.
Ted, did you have any questions for Brad?
No, I actually listened to a lot of the post game show. I wasn't in the locker room. And the one thing that I will make a comment on, I was really, really impressed with there's a lot of feedback right there. I was really impressed when Colin Boswell told KJ to shoot the free throws, and I was surprised that the coaching staff didn't say anything, because that is a team mentality where you're really trying to get one of your teammates going. I thought that was huge. I don't know where the feedback's coming from.
Any thoughts on that, Sturdy?
Well, and that's what we talked about. I agree with Ked completely. I mean, very few guys give up those points. You know what I mean? So I think that's and that just shows where he's kind of evolved into that leader. And that's where you get a guy, and you got to remember Kylan, although he's a junior, is a sophomore age-wise, and so he's in his third year of college. But unlike all the other guys who are like a year older, or we got 25-year-olds playing, he's literally a sophomore age-wise. And so what he's evolved and kind of developed into a leader is really impressive, I think. And that's where you got to really like what you see from them. And I really think that he could be a key for them. The way he's played these last 4 games has been lights out. I think that's a guy who helps you make a run in March.
Yeah. Matt, did you have any questions for Brad?
No, I was just really interested in what he said about Humrickhouse, because I had a conversation with somebody in Ubben before they left, and Ben was shooting just after practice, and this person literally told me that the staff has told Ben to stop checking his mentions on X specifically, and he's kind of transformed himself confidence-wise after giving him that edict. And again, you wouldn't think that that'd be a big deal, but he's looked a lot different these last couple of weeks, because he's not worrying about what other people are saying about him from a game-to-game basis. And I think you can see the best out of him here maybe in the month of March.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. I think that's a really good point. The other thing I got to say is that, when I look at this, it's very interesting to see all these athletes. The world changed with NIL, and we say, oh, athletes are getting their money. The problem is that now people expect more from them. We've seen Coleman Hawkins. We've seen Omar Balu. We've seen Ben Humrickhouse. Guys at all different levels, all different schools, dealing with the vitriol on social media from the fans and the angry people. And it's really sad, because I think the NIL has made it worse than social media, because now fans who donate think that they're owed something by these guys. And it's like, oh, well, they're getting paid, so they're professionals, so it's a different thing. And, I don't know. It
doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right to give them death threats. The death threat that these kids are going through, Brad, you're right. It's a horrible. I don't understand why people think it's their right, whether they donate money or not. It's just easy to hide behind the computer to make those comments. The way Coleman spoke last night and Omar today, it changed my mindset with the NIL, because the coaches don't like for people to share, even with their teammates, how much they get, because these things this is what you're going to get when it becomes public. And yes, they're kids, but they're also human beings, and nobody deserves to be treated that way.
No, they do not. You're exactly right, kid. And I wish that people would understand that they're people. And Ben, Matt mentioned Ben. Ben's one of the nicest kids we're probably going to have on the Illinois beat in my career. And he is a kid who just, cares and just wants to do what he can to help the team win. And yet at the same time, you can think he's not a great basketball player. You can think whatever you want. It doesn't matter. He's doing the best that he can. And so that's all you can really ask from somebody, is that they do the best that they can and they give you 100% effort. There's no question that he does that.
Yeah, I think as I look at this, it's a real challenge. There's a thing across the country. It's on talk radio, where everybody's an expert and they have disdain for everybody else, and it's so discouraging to see people, screaming and yelling at kids. I don't care if they get money. That doesn't make you not 18 and not young. And I just think of what kind of choices I would have made in college, and I'm very thankful we didn't have social media and cameras on phones when I was that age, or I couldn't give as many lectures as I do right now. So the question I have for you, Brad, because I was actually, it's ironic. This just shows how you and I think. I was going to ask you, if you were a coach in college right now, would you tell your players to, give your social media over to some marketing kid during the season, or tell them to just not go on there? Because to me, I don't see much good coming out of it to have all these individuals, largely anonymous, ripping on you, especially at a time when it's so important. You're part of your development is to learn how to deal with the, how others perceive you, and under this pressure that they're under, I don't know that it's a benefit.
No, I would agree with that. Here's the other thing. I think you're exactly right, but the problem is these guys also get endorsements. They get money from social media. That's some of their stuff that they have. So it's difficult to say, hey, don't do this. But I think the biggest thing is not engaging, putting your stuff out there, whatever you need to do on social media, but not engaging with the fans and not reading what's said about you. Because, and we're all like this, we want to read what some people say, but these young guys, that it really bothers them. Like, I'm used to people hating me, so it's okay. I get it's normal.
I've been married for 34 years, Brad, so I'm right there with you.
Exactly. I mean, I understand. I wake up and somebody hates me. It's what happens. It's that's married life, right? So no, you do. I think it's a different animal though for these young guys going through this the first time, especially because let's be honest, Ben Hummerkaus was on Twitter before he got to Illinois. No one knew who Ben Hummerkaus was until he came to Illinois. So now they do, and so it's a different. It's just a different world, and I agree with maybe having somebody run it so they can do your social media stuff or whatever you need to do. But at the same time, I think that the biggest thing is not engaging. But it's also a lot about, that it can really hurt your confidence to hear everybody saying bad things about you. And I think that's a difficult thing for these guys. And I totally agree. I would try and get off it. You remember, back in the day, I remember, back when Bruce Weber was here, they used to tell guys to turn off their social media while the season was going on, but that was a different world. People weren't making money off social media back then.
Well, you know what? I want to add to that. I'm gonna tell you, it's not just. I'm sorry, Mike. This is not just a player situation with these fans. If you don't think these coaches are getting the same treatment, things done to their houses, things done to their cars, you're kidding yourselves. I can tell you right now. I'm going to speak for Iowa, because I know some of the Iowa fans. I work in the state and live in I live in Illinois, but I'm gonna tell you, some of these people, you want to be quick to get rid of him, and I know he's frustrated. If the people knew the things that were being said and done to Fran, I would have left a year ago if I was him. I'm sorry. Just like Iowa, love Iowa, their coaches deal with the same thing. Because you're losing games, the fans do the same thing to them. And what stinks is that everything is out there, so they know where you live. They find your house. It is scary. And to all those people out there, nothing. I have no comment. I'm sorry.
Well, look. There's a few Iowa listeners. Today I was on Randazzo's show. I took place of Ked. I probably wasn't near as entertaining, but I tried to help out over there. And there's a lot of great Iowa fans. And I'm telling you right now, Iowa fans, if you think you're going to get better coaches than Kirk Ferentz, and Fran, you might, but take a big lesson from Illinois football coaches over the last 30 years. Illinois has made a lot of choices like, hey, there's no way we can get a worse coach than this guy, and then hold my beer. You're left going, oh, my God, what just happened to our football program? So, again, as I look at what's going on with this Iowa thing, I'm not saying they're perfect coaches, but basically there's an awful lot that Iowa could lose here if things don't go right.
Yeah. And here's the other part about it. Iowa's roster this year has $1.5 million total in NIL money. That's what they're running. We have players on rosters getting more than that. One player on rosters getting that. Illinois has guys getting $1 million. Ked gets more than that. Oh,
yes.
Wait.
Yeah, right. I wish.
Name, image, likeness.
But there's something to be said about what Brad just said. You're right.
So
you have guys with one player getting more, if not, well, I mean, let's use what the rumor was with Coleman Hawkins. He was reportedly getting $2 million to go to Kansas State. I can tell you right now, the reason why Tony Perkins left Iowa was because he wanted $400,000 or $500,000, and they couldn't give it to him.
Yep.
Yeah,
No,
before
you're exactly right.
out here, because it's almost 10 o'clock local time where he's at in Indiana. Two things I want to add. One is that there is a big time rumor, guys, that if Iowa were to make that move, 5 minutes later, Fran might be the next head coach at Penn, where he actually got his first assistant coaching job. Like, I've heard that rumor.
Hey, Brad, can you mute your microphone when you're not talking?
That's not a rumor. That's an actual rumor. And two, Sturdy, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to say hi to my man Bruce before you leave tonight, and let him know that, Bam still is waiting for that Jarlin's Custard Cup NIL deal, because, hey, Mr. Co-owner, like, you can help out. You can still help out the program.
I'll let him know. No, yeah, I totally agree with that. I would say this, in talking about Fran, I think it's gonna happen. I think Penn and LaSalle have both been schools that I think were interested in him, so he'll find a home. I have very little doubt.
That's too bad, because I would make him Illinois' offensive coordinator. Brad and I have talked about that on the radio show. The first thing I would do is, if I was Brad Underwood, and this is why Brad Underwood probably is much more successful in life than me, but the first thing that I would do is I would make an offer for about double what the Big Ten pays Bruce Weber to be the defensive coordinator for Illinois. And I would put Fran as the offensive coordinator for Illinois, and then use the recruiting machines that are Orlando and Jeff, throw a third recruiter in there. And then I would just be the executive who comes down and sees how things are going and holds the trophies up at the end of the Big Ten season, the Big Ten tourney, and the national tourney. That's what I would do. Any thoughts on that, Brad? Now Brad's playing the strong silent type. He may have got himself caught there in the rope, and
I think what Cadby just described is that he wants to be the coordinator of pizza eating of Illini basketball.
Look, man, I'm just telling you. You know what? I am such a poor athlete. Pete Rose was the guy that I kind of patterned myself after in sports, because I was never as big, strong, or fast as the guys I competed with. I was never an athlete like Ked. So I had to be meaner. I had to do whatever was necessary to win, and taking guys like that are the perfect ones. So
for folks that don't understand the inside joke that I kind of tried to give to Sturdy, which was, we both went to the Big Ten Media Day, which seems like forever ago, and Kylan was one of the two players that was there. And literally, when we asked him if there was an NIL deal locally that he wanted, it was Jarling's Custard Cup. And I kid you not, he was literally standing like 3 feet away from Bruce Weber, who was doing some stuff for Big Ten Network. And Brad and I just both pointed and said, you realize he's one of the co-owners right over there. Like, go get your deal right now. And, hey, my man Bruce, who I still love to death, like, help the program out. Like, throw Kylan an NIL deal so he can stay at Illinois next year, because that is a winning basketball player. And Illinois would be lucky to have him again for another year based on what he's done throughout, I think, a 4 or 5 month season.
Well, it will be very interesting to see if Illinois can get some of that continuity, because I think we've seen that this is a pretty effective coaching staff. And if you're mixing that pot of chili and you've got some ingredients that you can count on and you know exactly what they can do, it makes the year a lot better. And I just think there's a few of these guys that you put on there for a second year, and we end up in a pretty good place with that. So I think Sturdy did have to go. They tend to move people in and out of that media area, and so it can get a little challenging. So he did have to rock and roll. So we won't have him there. Ked, Any additional thoughts as we kind of wrap this up? Obviously, I guess I should say before we do that, tomorrow we will be on at the half, just like we were today. So that should be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot tougher game. And then we'll be on after the game, just like we did tonight. We will do that tomorrow. Game starts at the same time. That's 6:30 Central, and it's going to be on the Big Ten Network. I'm sorry, 5:30 Central on the Big Ten Network, 6:30 Eastern Time. And we look forward to the Illini seeing if they can march up the seedings, and I think a victory over Maryland would be critical for that. So, Ked, your final thoughts?
Well, I think Iowa, which we know, shot the heck out of the basketball today. I don't know. I can't predict the future. I dream of Genie. But I don't think Maryland's going to shoot the ball that good. I just don't. If they do, kudos, and I'm wrong. If Illinois plays the way they played tonight, they're going to beat Maryland. They have to make some defensive adjustments. For the 3 out of the last 4 years, they just allowed Julian Reese to just punish them in the paint. They have to do what they did to Kaufman Wren last week. You cannot allow him to just score at will. What those defensive assignments are, couldn't tell you. I do think it will make a difference with getting Advises back. I'll close with this last statement. Before the Big Ten tournament started and the brackets were set, I personally said there was 2 teams that I want to play in the Big Ten tournament. I didn't care who they were other than Maryland and possibly Michigan State. Now, some people may think, "Kid, what the hell are you asking for?" I think Illinois is just as good as those teams, if not better. They were hampered with injuries because, like I said, Advises didn't play against Maryland, and Illinois played Michigan State with KJ sitting on the bench and in foul trouble, and Will Riley was sick. And if you also remember, I think that was the game where Advises was done after that. So I really and truly hope that they get a good shot at Maryland and that they can beat them. Because some teams, they have your number. Maryland's had Illinois' number.
Yep. Kat, any thought on who could replace what Will is doing for next year? Just maybe just throw one name out there for people, and any other names.
Yes, if you're looking at
Illini guys, and you can get a lot more than that.
If you're looking at a recruit, and I cannot say for 100% sure, I will say that Illinois has put themselves in great position with the kid named Dami Sarr. He's a kid that reminds me a lot of Will Riley, except for he's a little bit stronger. So Mike's right. For those out there listening, you want to know rumors out there like that, because they're going to replace these guys with high-level talent. NIL money and the way they go out and scout talent. He's a guy, because I do think Will Riley's gone. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. There's talk with him possibly coming back, but if he doesn't, Dami Sarr, some people think it's Dame, but Dami Sarr is a kid that they're really looking at from overseas that could possibly replace him if they're able to beat out some other good schools to land him.
Okay. And Matt, you want to do your wrap of the game tonight?
Yeah, quickly, just so happy for Morez Johnson. I know he only played 12 minutes, but I'm so happy he was able to get back. And I was so happy that he was as effective as he was because, 5 of those 14 offensive rebounds tonight for Illinois came from that big boy. And I think he's going to make it. What they had lost, not only on the defensive end, but on the glass when he was gone, was unbelievably noticeable. I'm so happy that he was able to come back at essentially the deadline at which they were trying to get him back at. And Brad said tonight, Underwood said tonight, we have our own Brad. Underwood said tonight that they think that they can continually gradually give him, 15 minutes maybe tomorrow, and gradually move that forward in terms of contribution, because basketball shape is a heck of a lot different than being in great shape, even though I think that young man is in unbelievable shape. But I do think he was effective tonight in what Illinois needs the most, which is some sandpaper on defense and a really, really solid guy on the glass. But more than that, I was really, really happy that he was able to come back and be able to contribute on this basketball team, because when he went out with that injury, I think he was at his peak in terms of confidence, and he was at his peak in terms of performance. And for him to be able to come back and make an impact in March, love it for him, because I think that'll do nothing but shoot his confidence up even more. And I'm really, really happy when things work out that way.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw a couple things out there, and then we'll scroll through some of the comments and give a quick response. But I'm just telling you, the IlliniGuys.com subscription, $99 a year. When it is its most valuable is during the transfer portal and during the recruiting times of the year, because you'll get Ked, myself, and Brad out watching different tournaments. You will get all the rumors, because there's a lot of people who cover Illinois sports. There's not a lot of people who the coaches call. A lot of people try to call the coaches, but there ain't a lot of people that the coaches call. And we got two of them right here with Brad and Ked. So a couple things here. There were some things here. Of course, we got to give Meow Peep. Yes, Coke Zero. Again, people at Coca-Cola bottlers there. We can move cases for you. You just got to call us. We also, this I thought was interesting. I'm going to miss this team. They've been through so much this season. They're now battle tested. Of course, a one and done doesn't mean the best team always wins, but there were some very frustrating moments this season, but watching them on this journey has been very rewarding for me. Quick hits from you guys on that.
Well, I'm not going to lie. This is not, gosh, I feel bad for saying this. It's not been one of my favorite teams to watch. I'm sorry. It's to cover. Watch, cover. It's just not. I understand injuries, and I just think they left games on the table. It's not fair to compare this team to other teams. It's just not. But I will use the most recent, even though I said I wouldn't. Last year's team would not have lost to USC. That wouldn't have happened. I don't see that. Those losses to me made me cringe. I think last year's team was tougher mentally. This team is young. And so I'm not going to sit and say, I'll tell you what, I know last year probably 80% of people listening to this podcast knew that Illinois last year had a chance at a Final 8 or Final 4. If they were being honest with themselves right now, I don't think they could say that, because if you look at the body of work this season, who they've lost to, if you think that, good luck to you, mate.
Matt, any quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't get paid a single dollar more if Illinois wins or loses. So I think that watching a team, like you said, Cagley, struggle is just as fascinating as watching a team just breeze through a regular season. And I think there have been so many storylines off this season based off of individual guys and then a collective unit struggle through so many different things that I think it's been fascinating. But yeah, I can understand if you're an Illini fan how it's been a wee bit more frustrating than it was last year. But there's a winding road that happens between Halloween and March Madness, and I think this team has gone through a lot of crossroads this year and to get where they are right now.
Yeah, if you want to get frustrated, try watching George Montgomery shoot free throws during the last 2 minutes of a game. That'll get you frustrated. Did Illinois also put the nail in the coaching coffins of both IU and Iowa? Glorious. I gotta give them a thumbs up, because that is true and it is glorious. So I hard to argue that one. Kat, any thoughts on that?
Well, it could be a good thing and a bad thing. If they make bad hires, I'm all for it. I'm just concerned. I think the Big Ten is an attractive conference, and it's already tough as it is. It is. And with all the new West Coast teams and then your coaches getting fired, I was a huge Ben Johnson fan, very upset that he got fired today. I think the guy did things the right way. So there could be 3 or 4 possibly new coaches in the Big Ten for sure. That we know. 2 for sure, and possibly 3, depending upon what Fran's going to do. And there could be more. So I don't know. I always take the caution side. Well, you know what? Be careful what you ask for, because the Big Ten is the Big Ten, and the SEC, they dominate. Why would you not want to coach in the Big Ten? Because there's a lot of money in the conference. There's a lot of viewership, and a lot of the fan bases are great. You know, I said this before with Iowa. You look at the University of Iowa, I think that stadium, Carver Hawkeye, hosts 15,500 people. Tom Kaker told us 2 or 3 games ago, they had literally 2,600 people pay or actually scan tickets to walk in that arena. That's not going to fly in the Big Ten. It's just not going to. So, Brad P., you asked who they can get better. I like Fran, but it's time for fresh blood. I mean, Fran is good, but he's not the most aggressive recruiter. But in fairness, They need to up their NIL money. If they don't up their NIL money, I don't care if they hire Don Rickles or Don Knotts. It doesn't matter. You're going to still struggle if you do not fix your NIL dollars.
Matt, quick response on this.
Here's the deal. Beth Gates, if you're listening at Iowa, here's what you do. Here's what you don't do, okay? If you're going to make the move on Fran, don't you dare do it at 1:19 in the morning, okay? Like Mark Coyle did at Minnesota with Ben Johnson, because what Minnesota did with Ben Johnson is one of the most aggravating, and honestly, it pisses me off. Like the way they handled that termination. I don't care that he's on the NCAA tournament selection committee. The way that was handled was weird, and it was classless. And the word that was used by Matt Norlander at CBS was ruthless, and it's absolutely the right word. So Beth, don't do this at 1:19 in the morning. You do this in the way that you do this in a way that at least presents some class if you're gonna do this. And I understand having to move on. I don't necessarily agree with it because I think Fran's one of the better basketball coaches in the conference. But I get it. But don't do it when they get home today at Iowa, like at 2 a.m. at Iowa City. Don't you dare do that, because I personally think, and this is the way I look at things, again, because I have no dog in this fight. But the way that Minnesota handled Ben Johnson, I hope they lose every game next season, because they are not running that program and that athletic department in a classy way, in my personal opinion. But I do think that because of the way that she handled, say, Brian Ferentz, I don't think that's going to happen in a similar fashion. But I hope just do not replicate what Minnesota pulled off way earlier this morning with how they handled Ben Johnson, and I hope that how they handle it with Fran kind of puts Iowa has this impression that we're going to treat people the right way. They did it with their women's basketball coach who retired. Do it the right way with Fran, because he deserves it. He's earned it. He's earned the right way to do that, and I think Beth Gates will do it that way.
Yeah, I hope so. Like I said, I've grown to appreciate him more because the handcuffs that he has with NIL budgets, if you look at dollars spent versus results on the floor, he's probably doing a pretty darn good job. And I'm not going to throw any rocks. I'm not saying he's John Wooden, but I think he's done quite a job. And if I was a head coach, like I said, I don't really joke. I'm a funny guy, right? But I would tell you that I really do believe if I was a Brad Underwood, I would bring Fran over and say, you take care of the offense. I don't have to worry about it anymore. And I'd probably do the same thing get a guy like Bruce Weber on the defense. And then all I have to do is figure out my substitution patterns and make sure that the other guys are out recruiting and we're good. So yeah, I will tell you the part that is a key is that who's they going to get that's better. Because in this world, Illini fans have found out so many times, hey, Ron Zook, he can recruit, but he can't coach. So we're going to get somebody better like Tim Beckman. And that didn't work out so good. So again, the devil you don't know can be very, very scary. So again, it's not why you want to keep somebody. But even Illinois, when it's like, oh, hey, Bruce Weber's not going to be able to recruit, so we're going to get John Gross and see that he can't either. So I don't know.
Also, how you do it, Mike, and this.
I agree.
How you do it will be looked upon to everybody else who's going to potentially want or not want that job. Because I can't see anybody right now looking at that Minnesota situation going, I want to work for that guy. Like, you know what I mean? And and Minnesota's already in a one arm tied behind their back situation in that regard. So Iowa is very, 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 very keen to the idea that we have to do this the right way because we don't have one of probably the premier jobs in the league. They can't add premium seats at Carver Hawkeye. There's no skyboxes that we're being able to put in at Carver Hawkeye. Yeah. So we have to be able to do this in the right way to promote the idea that we are, a quote unquote family type situation here. And we will.
They are remodeling. Just so you know, I don't know. I did hear last week they're remodeling Carver Hawkeye Arena.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. But check back with me when there's 15 or 20 skyboxes in that place. they can
So,
put it in
so
there.
we have one note here. I live in Indiana. I like Mike Woodson, but hate IU. I'm a lifelong Illini fan. I think I like Mike Woodson an awful lot too. I prefer he stays there, but I don't think we can get quite that lucky. I'm not saying anything about him as a man. He just hasn't been particularly successful at putting together a roster that doesn't look like 1985. Here's another one. I could see him coming over to Butler. I think they're referring to Fran.
Fran, yeah.
And be close to his boys in Indy. And Thad Matta, I played against him in high school. Great guy. He was down at Southern Illinois University when I was there. If it wasn't for some health issues, Thad would probably still be over at Ohio State, and they probably would have been much more successful the last 10 years or so. Let me see. Oh yeah. Nebraska had Molinari as the defensive coach with Miles. I have no problem, with the current regime in Nebraska, but I don't know that they got a lot by firing Miles. I thought he was an effective coach considering the handcuffs that he had with NIL. So I don't, that just goes to show you it's just not easy to somehow hire and get a better there. Or Oregon will upset Michigan State tomorrow night, and we will pay attention to that, and we will see what happens. I am a big believer in Michigan State, so that means that maybe you should go put money on it, because I am famous for being really sucky at picking teams and when I put my money on them. So that may be that might be your thing. And the issue with Tim Beckman and John Gross was Mike Thomas, and he was a joke of an athletic director. I agree with that. The best AD in college, Josh Whitman's good, but I mean, the word best would be a very challenging one, but I think Josh is one of the best Illinois. To be honest, he's probably the best Illinois has had in my lifetime. Him and Neil Stoner, but Josh doesn't have the propensity to use university workers to paint his house. The issue with Tim Beckman and John Gross was Mike Thomas. He was definitely a negative factor for them, but trust me, they had plenty of factors on their own. So I'll go with that. And finally, last one as we wrap up here, it's time for Illinois basketball to take the next step and make Final Fours. I'm all for that, but I'd prefer, if you're going to take that step, we've already been to a championship game in 2005. Let's take the next step and bring the title home. I could handle that this year. Folks, we hope you've enjoyed this. We will be back tomorrow. Thanks to Brad. Thanks to Ked. Thanks to Matt. And please go ahead and subscribe at IlliniGuys.com. We would love to see more people subscribe, and that helps us out with our mission to be able to cover Illini sports, and that allows us to have reporters at games and do all those things that help give you that inside coverage. Until tomorrow, folks, go Illini.